also the audience. We're not sign holders. I don't appreciate applause after people make comments. The board's trying to contemplate what you're going to say and listen to it. So we're close to being Okay, we're live, and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for September the 14th, 2021. We're going to begin with a call to order, and I'll call the roll to find out who's here. We'll follow that by the invocation offered by Alderman Barnhill, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we'll continue to work through the agenda, which, if you wanted one, is in the next to the middle hole in the building here. So Alderman Barnhill, are you here?
Yes.
Alderman Martin?
Present.
Alderman Schroer?
Here.
Alderman Speedy?
Present.
Alderman McClendon is absent. Alderman Blanton?
Here.
Alderman Peterson?
Here.
And Vice Mayor Berger?
Here.
Okay, so Alderman Barnhill, please offer an invocation. Please stand.
Would you bow, please? Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight in prayer, thanking you for this great nation that we live in and for the many blessings and freedoms that we enjoy. We give you the thanks and comfort for those. We also ask your blessings upon the people who protect our freedoms, the soldiers who are in foreign countries, separated from families, and also our first responders who protect our local freedoms. We ask, Heavenly Father, we know that there are many places in this country right now that are going through hardship, hurricanes, COVID, and we ask your blessings to be on each of these communities and for all the people who are suffering in this great nation. This prayer we offer in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I must say, I love the echo of you saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That's wonderful, and I applaud you, and thanks for being here tonight. It is a busy meeting. The next item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to make comments for items that are not on the agenda. And just as with items on the agenda, we require a speaker card just so that we can have an appropriate record of who speaks and get that entered in appropriately. So I don't see anyone coming forward on anything. I have plenty on another item, though.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
I'm going to recognize you on
Okay.
Recognitions in just a minute.
Okay, perfect. I like to be recognized.
Your time's coming to an end.
Okay, all right, I know that. Thank goodness.
And we're sad about it.
Oh, yeah.
So are there any communications from the Williamson County Commission? I have none, and then we'll go on to the approval of the minutes, which are August 24th work session and the August 24th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman
Second.
Peterson. Second, Alderman Schroer. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to recognitions, and I think we'll start with Alderman Schroer. Wanted to make some public comments, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is totally, has nothing to do with tonight, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I watched on television a horrible incident that took place in our county. And not only did I watch it locally, but I watched it nationally, and I saw parents yelling and threatening other parents at a meeting at our school board. And I was appalled at that. And the mayor just said, we're going to behave here and do what should be done tonight when we meet. We had parents fighting parents. And then, even worse, I watched about a week later a 15-year-old young man in Murfreesboro that addressed the school board and talked about the death of his grandmother from COVID. And he was mocked by adults in the crowd for that very reason. And I've never in my life been embarrassed to be a Tennessean, but I was embarrassed to be part of that group known as Tennesseans that were treating other Tennesseans that way. And then I found out today, though, we now have managed to be first in something. And I was proud when I was a TDOT commissioner. We had like the 3rd best roads in the nation. So I was pretty excited about that. We never got to first, but Tennessee has finally got to first on something. And we were first because we lead all 50 states in the number of COVID-19 cases per capita in the country. We're last in vaccination. And folks, I don't know how you feel about that, but I have a wife that has some immune symptoms, and she's threatened every time she goes out because of this horrible disease. And right now, Tennesseans, only 43% of Tennesseans have had both vaccine shots, 43%. And Williamson County is a little bit better, 54.81, but it's just not enough. And we are 45th in the country for states that are vaccinated, 45th. And so there's a correlation between the fact that we're 45th in vaccinations and first in amount of COVID cases. We have to not only look after, everybody says I have my own rights, but you have to look after those that are around you and be concerned about them, and how you behave and what you do puts other people at risk. We don't smoke in restaurants anymore. You're not allowed to do that. Why? Because of secondhand smoke. Well, we should think the same way about a COVID vaccine. And now the President of the United States has said that organizations with 100 or more employees are going to have be vaccinated or tested once every week. And we got a whole bunch of emails about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, about mandates and stuff. I responded to a couple of them. And one of them, I said, I don't think the city's going to consider a mandate. That was before the president spoke. But I also said, but if they did, I would vote for it immediately. So just so you know where I stand. I hope I have an opportunity to vote while I'm here for 2 more meetings, that the city will accept a mandate from the President of the United States. You may have to accept that mandate from the President of the United States, but we have got to do better as a state. We have to protect our own children, we have to protect each other, and we have to protect those of the people that live with us. And I quit.
Thank you, Alderman Schroer. Are there any other miscellaneous reports? I will go back to the Constitution Week proclamation. Any other reports or miscellaneous comments?
I have 3 things I want to cover. I don't know if you want me to do those now or.
I'd like for you to go ahead and do those
Okay.
now. And I'll go down to the podium for the presentation to the President of the Daughters of the Revolution, American Revolution.
So there are 3 things I want to touch on. One, I left at your place. I don't need action tonight, but I do need to get some feedback from you. I'd like to bring this forward for formal action in 2 weeks. But this touches a little bit on what Alderman Schroer just talked about. I would like to move forward with reinstating the ability to have a classification of COVID sick time. We had that for about 15 months last year, and that ended earlier this year, around March. And basically what it does is provides up to 10 days for those who have documented COVID cases, so that we don't, we create sort of a special category of sick time. This will encourage folks to make sure they're getting tested if they have concerns or have exposures and are not bringing it into the workplace to impact other team members or the community. And I'd like to have us go retroactive back to August 1st, because we have had an increase in cases since then within our city workforce, our team here, and take that through the end of the calendar year and then reevaluate it at that point. So the memo I gave you gives you sort of a framework for that. It would be for full and part-time folks, and they would need to have documented cases either through their physician or through sharing their test results with us. So that would allow that additional category. I don't believe it has a significant financial impact. It's something we had in place in a little actually broader form most of last year into this year. So I've shared that with you. I want you to look at that. I want it to be publicly kind of noticed that we're going to ask you to act in reinstating that. Williamson County did something similar just within the last week or so, and I'd like to see us do the same to just add that additional protection for folks in that category, just with the numbers we're starting to see both locally but also within our workforce itself. So there's that item. I do want to highlight some things coming up next week that are important. We're looking at urban growth boundary updates. The county is starting a process that won't start formally till next year, related to revisiting and updating the urban growth boundaries throughout the county. Hasn't been touched for over 20 years, and that's being re-examined by the county, by every city within Williamson County. We have some discussions and presentations scheduled for next week. They're geographically oriented. The Southwest Basin will have their presentation next Tuesday at 5:30. Mays Creek Basin, same day, Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Goose Creek, Wednesday at 5:30. And then all other areas, sort of a catch-all that same night, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. All this is on our website. You can also come here in person, or you can virtually engage and participate that way. You can go to our website, franklintn.gov/UGB, and get on that and participate either through Zoom or come here in person. We'll also talk about next week at your joint conceptual workshop on Thursday evening as we talk through that with the Planning Commission and board together. And then we have open office hours at the end of next week and the first part of the following week. So there's lots of opportunity to engage. The process hasn't formally started, but we want robust dialogue with our citizens to get their feedback and help shape what this will be when it formally starts next year. So I just wanted to highlight that for folks. And then I have a fun thing to highlight for you. We are winners of what's called a Telly Award. I have this right here. I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards, but the credit and the applause goes to our communication team. They worked hard to provide an alternative to what has been a great event that has evolved over the last 10 years, which is our Christmas tree lighting on the square. We couldn't do it together with 6,000 or 7,000 or 8,000 of our closest friends, so we did it virtually. And Melissa Ryerson, our communication manager, our communication team, worked together. Come on forward, Melissa. Our sponsors that help us. Our sponsors that help us, Middle Tennessee Electric is here as well. They stepped up even though it wasn't in person. They provided the same level of support they've provided in previous years to help it happen. And we received a Telly Award for, I think the formal category is General Virtual Events and Experiences in the 42nd Annual Telly Award process. So folks like ESPN, the Hearst Networks, A&E, ESPN, I said that, Netflix, Nickelodeon, all those folks have received similar awards in this same cycle. So we're up with the big boys. Congratulations, Melissa and team.
We are so proud to be a part of this and so honored that the city allowed us to do this. And just want to say thank you to all the aldermen and the mayor. It's an event we look forward to every year. So I think we love it more than the city does sometimes. But anyway, thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you to the sponsors and thank you to all of you and especially Eric and the mayor for going along with my silly ideas. So I appreciate it.
Good job.
Before you start, I have one quick thing.
Please.
Saturday at Pinkerton Park from 9 to noon is our annual Arbor Day. We typically do it in April on the Earth Day weekend, but you know, things happen. So Saturday at Pinkerton Park, there's going to be face painting and we will have a sort of a free tree situation. We haven't altered that a little bit just because of the growing season, but it's a great family-friendly event, and we would invite everybody to come out 9 to 12 at Pinkerton Park.
Great. Anybody else? I have a proclamation for Constitution Week, and I'm not quite sure how to do this. I think I'm going to line y'all up.
Let me see.
And I'll read to y'all.
I'm not getting up, you know why.
I'm doing something else.
This group is amazing as far as what they do for our schools, what they do for our city, and what they do for our veterans. And when they ask me to do a proclamation, I'm always quick to respond. So this is the Daughters of the American Revolution. So whereas our founding fathers, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, ordained and established a Constitution for the United States of America. Notice we have 2 aldermen. And whereas it is the greatest importance that all citizens understand the provisions and principles contained in the Constitution in order to effectively support, preserve, and defend it against all enemies, and whereas the independence guaranteed to American citizens, whether by birth or naturalization, should be celebrated by appropriate ceremonies and activities, now therefore I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of Franklin, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the week of September the 17th as Constitution Week, and urge all of our citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. So.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. I'm Sarah Ford, the Regent of Old Glory Chapter. We have been in Franklin since 1897, serving the city and the community in this area. Next year, we are going to celebrate our 125th year here in Franklin, doing good things around the city. And I'm going to let Dolores Greenwald is our first vice regent, and she is going to tell you about Constitution Week.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite those of you present in the audience, but those of you that help manage this great city to come and visit us at the library Sunday from 1:30 to 3 o'clock while we celebrate Constitution Week with snacks and balloon artists and educational tools to help learn about the Constitution. I even heard that Alexander Hamilton is supposed to be there. So bring your family, your kiddos, and everybody. And again, thank you so much. And there is never a more important time to celebrate the Constitution than this Sunday. Thank you very much.
You're okay to get up. He's going to get the podium. It's really nice.
You could bomb.
Rotating.
While the mayor is coming up next week, he will be installed as our TML president. So a tremendous honor for the city of Franklin and a tremendous honor for Mayor Moore to become the TML president for the next year. Thank you.
For those playing at home, TML is the Tennessee Municipal League.
You got me speechless almost. Let's go to the consent agenda, which, under the consent agenda, all items are deemed to be non-controversial, routine in nature by the governing body, and is recommended by committee or staff for one motion of the governing body. Tonight, we're considering items 31 to 42. So I would entertain a
Move
motion.
approved.
Thank you.
Second.
And second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 4, which is consideration of Resolution 2021-112, a resolution to accept and recommend approval of Amendment 4 to the Comprehensive Transportation Network Plan, Major Thoroughfare Plan, to the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission. And as I mentioned in the work session, since Alderman McClendon is not here tonight, and I know that he had some interest in Fieldstone Parkway not being extended, we're going to consider that separately at the next meeting. So if there is a motion, I would ask that you consider including that in the motion. So
move.
What you said.
thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Is there any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes. Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 5, this is a public hearing, consideration ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance to rezone 233.66 acres from agricultural district and civic institutional district to planned district for several properties located near the intersection of Hillsborough Road and MacHatcher Memorial Parkway. Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak to the Envision Franklin design concepts that are on this property. There are 2, conservation subdivision and conservation. I'm going to start with conservation subdivision. Conservation subdivision calls for the primary use to be single-family residential. And it also supports secondary uses of multiplexes, which are up to 4 units per building, and duplexes. The applicant is going against this guidance by proposing 3 multifamily buildings, approximately with 21 units each, within each building, for a total of 64 multifamily units. The multifamily units are at a scale, the proposed scale is not in line with the guidance of Envision Franklin, nor are they in the context of the other residential uses along this section of Hillsborough Road. So that additional density that they have with these multifamily units, we don't support, so we would recommend that the zoning proposed be reduced or disapproved. The second point I'd like to make is about conservation design concept. This design concept aligns with the current floodplain of the property. Michael, if you don't mind pulling up that exhibit. There is a good deal of floodplain on this property that is being maintained and untouched in open spaces on the plan. It's on the western side of the property, on the southern side of the property, and then there's a large portion on the eastern side where they are not touching the floodplain. I wanted to point that out. However, the plan shows 53 acres, this area in blue, a floodplain that's being manipulated for the allowance of 332 units, or 70% of the units proposed. Let me say that one more time. So the units, because I got this wrong at work session, Alderman Barnhill, it's not 57 units that are being allowed. In the blue area, there are 332 units or lots that touch that blue area. and that accounts for 332 units, or 70% of the units being proposed. There's 471 units being proposed. Conservation does not support any residential uses and only supports recreational uses that preserve the natural features of the area. Also, it does not contemplate how to allow a portion of the floodplain to be manipulated, nor does it provide guidance on additional safety measures to include on a development plan as a way to provide security for future lots being created inches from new floodplain lines. It simply limits development. Without additional guidance on potential ways to allow development within the floodplain, staff cannot support the plan or the rezoning proposed. Further, it should be noted that while the manipulation of the floodplain will create additional land for development, it will not remove a portion of Hillsborough Road out of the floodplain. I can turn that over to Vernon Girth and Paul Holzen for additional comments about that specific issue.
Thank you, Amy. Mayor Alderman, as hard as we try to facilitate development approvals and make sure we get it right, this one has been challenging. And you all know that. You've received input from citizens. And even most recently today, our team has had discussions regarding Hillsborough Road and the elevation of it. And we've talked even this evening, just before the meeting, with the developer. The fact is that on Hillsborough Road, during a 100-year flood event, would be impassable. And our emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to enter this neighborhood unless something is done with Hillsborough Road. The staff recommendation, because it doesn't comply with Envision Franklin, is to disapprove as the Planning Commission also endorsed. If you're, during your deliberations, you're considering going against the Planning Commission and staff's recommendation, we would ask that we defer the plan until October 12th and another public hearing, the development plan, to allow staff to see if Hillsborough Road can be raised. It's a big undertaking, and it's not a decision that can be made lightly right here, right now. If you want additional information regarding the mitigation, I know Shannon McCoy and Paul Holzen provided a memo that the work they're going to propose on the site within the private property would have no impact. But Hillsborough Road still is a concern. We've engaged Chief Johnson, Assistant Chief King. We regret it's gotten to this point, but nevertheless, there's always merit to following Envision Franklin, because we do take our time in ensuring that that plan reflects the expectations of the city to help promote quality and safe development. Again, Paul can address any additional information regarding the impacts to Hillsborough Road. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a decision to make here as far as, this is the public hearing, it's still open, and Paul, do you want to make some comments before I say this then?
No, I agree with what Vernon said. It's unfortunate that this information's come up at this point. There is a lot of concern that we have with being able to pass Hillsborough Road, and it's something we need to work through and get that resolved. But as Vernon stated, I agree with everything he said.
Okay, thank you. And as I was saying, I have to make a decision here. I have a handful of speaker cards, and some of you didn't specify which item you wanted to speak to. So I think my decision is just to let everybody that gave me a speaker card speak at this time on item 5. Kind of my plan with this many people wanting to speak is I'm going to allow 1 minute each. We're going to start. I'm going to read out 5 people, and I'd ask for them to go ahead and come to the podium and be prepared, and then I'll call another 5. So we're going to start out with Chris Udi, Mary Stone, Roger Peters, Barb Bloom, and Devin Phillips. Sure. Sure. And the vice mayor wants to make sure that you understand what you're speaking to, which is this item 5 has to do with the rezoning, but I think many of you, since you didn't specify, are speaking maybe to the other areas of the plan. So, but I'll allow all of that to happen within this item 5 public. So, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I planned 2 minutes of talking, so I'll cut it to 1. My name's Chris Udy. I live at 222 Pearl Street, Franklin, Tennessee. I've lived in Franklin since 1997. I earned a bachelor's of engineering from Vanderbilt, served on the Franklin Planning Commission in the late 2000s. I've been an active member of the Congress for the New Urbanism. I achieved LEED accredited professional from the U.S. Green Building Council, and I was president of the board of the Hard Bargain Association from 2004 to 2011. I'm here to support the Brownland Development Plan. I see 3 major benefits. One is a private developer is going to turn the large unused and unusable piece of land in front of Monticello into a park that the entire community can use for free, giving that to the city. Number 2, currently the Brownland Farm and surrounding area by the river is passively subject to the effects of a flooding event. This development and the Hillsborough Road, as we just heard, will get flooded if there's a 100-year event. When by the development of this property, we now have the opportunity to do active engineering and flood management to control the water in case of a flood event. And so this boils down to the difference between taking our chances and making a plan. So thank you very much.
Good job.
Hi, I'm Mary Stone, and I live on Old Liberty Pike. There are new houses, and I live in an older home. And for the first time since 2010, my lower yard got flooded. My root cellar was like 2 to 3 feet. This hadn't happened since 2010. It went up to almost the 3rd step down from my house in 2010. So I'm here to say, someone on my street said, oh yeah, they're gonna widen the bin around Splendor Ridge. Well, Splendor Ridge was built. So until then, the flood came up to my fence. So that's fine, but we have more rain in the southeast than ever before. That's why the fires are out west. So I'm saying, yeah, build the higher road. What are you gonna do about the rest of the residents? New subdivision have a right to ask FEMA to change the floodplain. So everybody else, whether you're new or old, all the garages got flooded on my street on that back side of the river, the Liberty Creek. So what are you gonna do if everybody else gets flooded? Why are we not fixing the river? Thank you.
I'm Roger Peters. I live at 306 Heather Court in Cottonwood, and I'm retired now, but just wanted to express my concerns about the flooding issue because in 2010, we were hit pretty hard. Palm Sunday this past year, it flooded the clubhouse and everything there. And I just agree that anytime you do development like this, especially raising the road, is not going to help anybody on the west side. I mean, it's just going to make it just as bad. So I'm really concerned as far as a man-made attempt to do what God has done as far as creating a river. I understand things can back up. We saw just what happened at Waverly with a little bit of a backup under a railroad bridge where 20 people lost their lives. So anytime you do construction around a river, it does cause problems all around. So it's not just right here, it's all around us. So I would just advise you to please be wise. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barb Blum. I live at 306 Heather Court in Cottonwood. I strongly oppose the Brownland Farms development as it is proposed. It risks placing the surrounding neighborhoods at a greater flood event at a time when rainfall amounts are greater in volume and intensity. In March, the Cottonwood Clubhouse was flooded. That included the pool that was completely underwater and floodwaters covering the acres from the Harpeth all the way to the homes on Riverwood Drive was underwater. The playground at the corner of Fieldstone and Cotton Lake was completely covered. The baseball field north of Christ Church on Hillsborough was completely underwater. My daughter lives on Meadowbrook with her husband and her 3 young children. Their home was flooded in the 100-year flood of 2010. It was flooded again this past March, and they are still recovering from it. I ask you vote no on the proposal to protect the lives and property of the citizens who have invested years in this area. And incidentally, while Hillsborough Road may be able to be raised, my home and my daughter's home cannot be.
Hi, my name is Devin Phillips. I live at 2056 Belmont Circle in Fieldstone Farms. My biggest issues are you're going to hear a lot about flood, you're going to hear a lot about sinkholes, you're going to hear a lot about damage claims, rising waters, insurance. The big thing for me is if the Harpeth Conservancy says no, Envision Franklin says no, the Planning Committee says no, Cottonwood, Fieldstone Farms, Monticello, besides a couple of people that probably go to Christ Community, Rebel Meadows, think about Franklin High School, the golf course on Spencer Creek. We all are going to be affected. This one development with 471 plus or minus, depending on, you know, what FEMA decides that they're allowed to build, if you pass it, affects all of us. More than 471 of us and more than the owner of the company. What happens is we have to think, do we as the Board of Mayor and Aldermen take on this ourselves, or do we approve it and see what FEMA says and let the federal government take the reins, releasing us or the Board of Responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Bart Harrison, Don Davis, Owen Jones, Pastor Mike Smith, and Jason Kyle.
That's plugged in, is it?
Y'all flipping a coin to see who gets to go first?
Thank you and good evening. My name is Bart Harrison, and my wife and I live at 1735 Old Natchez Trace. And I'm just here with, like the others, mainly concerned with the flooding issue. In the years that I've lived out there, I've seen it just get worse. And again, I'm not opposed to development at Brownland Farms. I just ask that you consider these comments and that you think it out and maybe just take time to plan it out better. We spent Palm Sunday with the most recent flood rescuing neighbors' cows that were washed downstream, and it's just apparently and evidently getting worse. Again, I just ask that you each consider this development. Thank you.
I'm Don Davis. I reside at 1035 Neil Crest Circle. I'm on staff at Christ Community Church. I've been there for the past 12 years as their business administrator. And I wanted to clarify a few things as far as the church's support. One would be there's some reports that intentionally or unintentionally going around about the vote, and I wanted to mention to you that we didn't take that lightly. We deliberated with a lot of conversations and meetings and discussions and forums and so forth for months, and when it did go to vote, it was overwhelmingly in favor of the project, 2-1. The other issue I wanted to address was a comment that was made at a previous meeting about, the church is for it, and they're here in force because of the financial benefit. And I just want to remind everybody, we are a nonprofit organization. Our congregation is very, very generous in giving back to the community. I'm understanding this. It could be a situation where we could be even more generous in the future. There's no commissions and no bonuses or no raises for anyone involved in the project. But I wanted to point that out. Our motivation is really to be able to partner with the city and with a developer to shape and influence the beautification projects, portions of this project that are in there, such as the parks, the trails, the green space, the community gardens, the shared entrance. Those things are all interest to us, and we're looking forward to that. We think that the developer has been very open-minded to our concerns and the concerns of the community, and we think that what he's created, they have created together with the city, is really going to be a beautiful addition. Thank you.
My name's Owen Jones. I live at 105 Monticello Road, Franklin. I'm the co-president of the Homeowners Association in Monticello. I'm here today in that regard to speak on behalf of the board, which did vote in favor of this development, and that's after many months of meetings with the developer where iteratively they continued to address the concerns that we had as a community around traffic, around the homes that would be built on the eastern side of the development, eastern side of nearest to Monticello. Our interest as a board are really only three things, and that is to build community life, to protect people's homes, and really to make sure that we have good relationships in our community and with our city. We think with this development that a lot of these are addressed. We think it could be benefit to home prices. Community life is enhanced with that park and the enhancements that Don was talking about along the river. So I would just urge you to consider those things as you deliberate.
I'm Mike Smith. I've been a pastor of Christ Community for over 33 years. And was here downtown about 2 blocks from where we are now. We moved out to that property 2001, and I've been a part of that. I'm excited about this. I know people in our congregation are for it. People in our congregation are against it. You're going to hear some of them speak tonight. And I'm a pastor and love them all. But I'm for it from the standpoint of putting us more in the middle of community. You know, we were in the middle of things when we were downtown. I was actually disappointed when they took away the commercial aspect of it, because we could walk across the street and get something to eat instead of, now we were more isolated moving out of town. This would put us more in, and I'm excited about this aspect of community. And other people have got to figure out this flooding issue. I personally think the idea of Hillsborough Road needing to be raised is a red herring. I don't think that's really the issue. I mean, I live across the street in Monticello. People can't get to me anyway. I'm living there. They're going to shut down that community because of that? I don't think so. God bless.
My name is Jason Kyle, and I'm new to Tennessee. 6 years ago, we moved from New York City here. I'm at 240 Carnes Drive, and I've heard all the speaking so far. I'd like to speak for those that are going to come and live here in this beautiful city. I have lived all over the world. I've traveled all over the world. I've seen some terrible cities. This is one of the nicest cities I've ever been in. And I want to tell you that I have looked at these plans. I'm not an expert, but I'm very, very thankful for the community space. I believe that you all are offering some opportunity for people to come and live in our city together. So my wife and I, Maureen and me, we're with some of our grandkids, very thankful to be here. And I want to say thank you, and thank you for your consideration of this. I speak in favor of this plan.
Okay, the next 5. Thank you for those. Dory Bowles, Nell Henderson, Steve Kuhn, John Henderson, and Nell Henderson.
I'm Steve Kuhn. I live at 311 Monticello Road in Franklin, and I come from a unique perspective as the past president of the Monticello Homeowner Association, Christ Community Elder for 15 years, and chairman of our Master Planning and Building Committee. The emotional arguments about negative traffic impacts that we've been hearing are false and misleading, as Hillsborough Road has been choked down to one lane each way due to recent backcatcher construction for the last year or so. We cannot just trust the science on this flood issue when it fits our personal narratives. Many engineers with professional credentials on the line have assured us that the proposed improvements do not affect the river levels upstream or downstream, which is where everybody lives. Emotional arguments from laymen regarding flood potential should not receive more credence than the design of licensed professional engineers. And remember, FEMA must approve this entire study as well. The Etherly property, we're simply never going to get a better opportunity to develop that land than we're going to have with this plan. So we strongly support that, and I urge approval of this proposal as a responsible development plan and a clear asset to our overall community. Thank you for your time.
Oh, sorry. Hello, I'm Dory Bowles, CEO of the Harvard Conservancy, and I've been working with the staff off and on for the last year and a half. One of the things that I've been concerned about in our organization because of all of the increased intensity of rain events is making sure that all the communities that we work with on flood management are figuring out how to adapt. And so one of the things that I was never able to get was how much depth on water was out there on all these major thoroughfares. This is a very unusual area, and I know you've all seen this is in your packet, but this is completely surrounded by flood waters. And these are moving waters. Obviously, Mac Hatcher and Hillsborough Road is more backwater. It's not fast, but it's deep. It's 1 to 2 feet deep. And I had to reach out to TDOT to get that data and provide it to the city because FEMA had not done a cross-section here. FEMA's done cross-sections over here in front of Monticello. It's 4 feet deep at Monticello Road, and it's a foot deep. And these are at the 100-year flood levels, not May 2010 when there was more water. It's relevant to having a high-density residential subdivision in this area where people, not everybody's very smart when it comes to how to manage, natural disasters, as we know. In this area, unfortunately, we have more natural disasters at night, so it's more of a safety issue. There's definitely something that could be done out here, more commercial or something more low residential. It's something to consider because there are city regs that need to be complied with before it can be sent to FEMA. And so I thank you all very much. I just wanted to last comment. This is not a flood improvement to help others. It's to maximize development on this one site. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nell Henderson. I'm a 30-year resident of Franklin, Tennessee, and I live on Revere Lane in Monticello subdivision. I want to talk about the common good. Let's think about the concept of the common good, so lacking in our political system today. Members of a community provide to all members in order to fulfill a relational obligation they all have to care for certain interests that they all have in common. Many Franklin residents are involved in this Brownland proposal. Downtown Franklin, businesses of Hillsborough Road, Monticello, Fieldstone Farms, Cottonwood, Harpeth Village, Grassland as a community, and all this will be affected by the dense subdivision development. Envision Franklin understood this and proposed a conservative development plan. Except for Dr. Bowles and Laurie Turner, there have been few discussions of the overall topography of this area outside flooding issues. Sinkholes were found when the animal center was being built. The area is known to have cavernous areas due to the old phosphorus mining years ago. I have a small sinkhole in my yard. There was an issue of too much sand in the river basin when the septic service was installed on Petite Avenue in Monticello, given its closeness to the river. This would affect the subdivision development at the end of this area. All 3 exits are in the floodplain. I don't think any developer is going to build a bridge over the river at the back exit. The Mac Hatcher Bridge cost $45 million. The idea was presented twice by the developer. This will never take place. The safety of the residents should be considered if there had to be an evacuation. Hopefully, as citizens and leaders, we think what is best for the long-term residents and present population of the whole area. Complications of major proportion could happen during a flood with over 450 residents. The whole area could be degraded eventually. Hopefully, you as leaders will protect the appeal of our small city historical area. Hopefully, the quality of life will remain pleasant, safe, and peaceful with conservative development. Not more traffic, more poor planning for floods, more crowded schools, more sewer problems in the Hillsborough area road, which down the road does not have city sewer. The proposals affects the whole common community. Hopefully, you as leaders will make decisions by rules already presented by Envision Franklin. The best
go ahead and
interest
finish
of
up,
all
please.
area residents is at stake. Let's all protect the common good of our special community. Thank you.
I'm John Henderson. I live at 202 Rivera Lane. That's my wife who just spoke. With the exception of 6 years back in the late 60s and early 70s, I have spent my life in Franklin and Williamson County, and I do know about Franklin's flood history. I grew up on Lewisburg Avenue, just west of the railroad crossing. I remember that there was a dip as you cross the railroad going down towards Carnton Lane, I guess you'd call it now. And that was filled in. Before it was filled in, it was always flooded. And then when it was filled in, suddenly it wasn't. No water across the road. Then Youngville had its problems. And where did the water come? Did some of it come from that fill-in? Probably. I now live in Monticello subdivision, and I'm familiar with the problems there. I know that over the past year or so, the developer has proposed adding a retention program, filling in a small portion of the floodplain, even rerouting the river channel. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a retired country lawyer. But I know that these provisions and proposals are not the answer. Water has to go somewhere. For once, let the city of Franklin stop building in our floodplain. Thank you. I'm sorry I went over.
Apology accepted. I've got Laura Turner, Leanne Williams, Kevin Estes, Robin Anderton, and Michelle Anderton.
Good evening. I'm representing Citizens for Old Natchez Trace and the Montpelier Farm subdivision. I live by the Old Natchez Trace, which now floods on a regular basis. Fierce, formidable, and fast flooding events are becoming more and more frequent. On Palm Sunday, I had to kayak down the Old Natchez to feed the animals at Old Town. In the flood of 2010, I was trapped at Old Town with the animals for 3 days. The Brownland Farm proposal of putting 571 residential dwellings on 88 acres, with 53 of those acres in the floodplain, endangers the public safety. Hillsborough Road already floods, and this intense residential density will exceedingly exacerbate our current and future flooding problems. There are better ways to develop this property that will not put people at risk. City and county residents who live in the vicinity of the Harpeth River face safety as well as personal property issues. Many of us had input into Envision Franklin, and it states, the preservation of floodplains has a direct public safety purpose and helps minimize property damage during periods of flooding. Elected and appointed officials are expected to act in the best interest of the community they serve. I respectfully request that you do not override the expertise of the Franklin Planning Commission and staff recommendations regarding this proposal. Thank you.
My name is Leanne Williams, and I reside at 2305 Brianna Court. And I also come to speak not necessarily against development, just this density. Two main concerns, of course, is the flooding. One thing that with the intense rain that we've been having, my concern is during the process of what the engineer is saying he's wanting to do and moving dirt around and everything, if we were to have one of these intense events, what would happen to all that disturbed earth? When Mr., I believe it's pronounced Rogie, was here, I asked him that question afterwards, and he said that by law, that anytime a developer's doing anything like that, they're only responsible for the 5-year plan. Whether this development is considered by y'all or another one, I would hope that'd be a question you would ask on how they would prevent any disturbed soil from getting into the river. The other thing I want to consider is infrastructure. I've read some things recently about the water and the sewer, and would just ask that you would make those improvements to coincide with the completion of the development. Thank you.
My name's Kevin Estes with Land Solutions 2925 Berry Hill Drive, and I'm going to breathe through this and cut me off when you feel you need to. At 2 o'clock today, I'd come up here planning to talk about our development and the 2.5 years we worked with the community and what we've done and how we're going to improve the floodplain, and that we're at 2 units an acre, which is less than what conservation subdivisions are planned for, and all the great stuff that we've been working on for 2.5 years. And it's a fantastic development. I've put my reputation on the line. I've been an engineer for 27 years. I'm old at it. And I have never, at 2 o'clock, been called by city and said, oh, we can't recommend approval all of a sudden. There's a problem. We can't access your site safely. Which my response is, well, then how do you access the 149-bed assisted living site? Because there's only one way to get to that. Turn on from Machatcher to Hillsborough Road and onto Fort and Greer. The flooding's not in front of this site. All 3 entrances are out of the floodplain. I apologize for raising my voice. I apologize. This flooding that occurs in Hillsborough Road is in front of Regions Bank. Matt Huff will hand out a document if you want him to. If you want to call me, I will talk about this, but it is only about a 300-foot long problem. There are arterial road fees. If this is a problem for me, then it's a problem for that 149-bed assisted living, because it's the same access. So it's a problem for the city, and I'm not saying gotcha, but y'all approved it and it's built. There's 149 residents living there today. If they're in mortal danger, I'm in mortal danger. So let's fix it. We have arterial road fees. Propose a condition of approval tonight that we can use those arterial road fees and work with the fire marshal to fix this. I'm not isolated. I don't sit out there in an island like y'all are led to believe. Hillsborough Road wasn't built for me, wasn't built for Brownland Farms. Hillsborough Road is a state road with fabulous engineers, I'm assuming, designing it. So I'm here to say, when we talk about flooding, I paid experts. I'm not here to talk about flooding. The city told me who to hire. They overlooked it. I think Mr. Holton would speak up and say he's got no problems with the flood study tonight. I am here saying I've been working this 2.5 years. My $1.5 million I spent, it's not your problem. But I don't have any time to put this off for months and months and months. December 9th of 2020, I met with staff. I've got notes on it, with the fire department, providing them the exhibits they asked for the depth in Machatcher Road. Why today at 2 o'clock is this a problem? And if it's a problem for me, it's sure a problem for that assisted living. So if it's a problem, let's use the arterial road fees and fix it. I'm so sorry. Y'all are wonderful people, and I apologize for being frustrated. But 2.5 years should not come up to 5 hours before the meeting. Thank you very much.
And I allowed Mr. Estes a little time since he is the applicant on this. And so I'll use a little judgment there. So go ahead, Mr. Andrews.
Good evening. I live at 1155 Hillsborough Road. My name's Robin Anderton, and I am for this project, obviously. I would like to speak to y'all and at least pay attention to the facts, not hearsay and emotion. Let's go on what the people, the experts actually say instead of people who think they're experts. Thank you.
To put these on before I start reading. I'm Michelle Anderton. I live at 1155 Hillsborough Road as well, which is better known as Brownland Farm. I wrote a letter here. I know I sent it to you all, and I made some notes to talk about. I've got a minute, so I'm just going to try to summarize. I've lived in Franklin, and Brownland Farm has been a part of my life for over 27 years, over half my life. I feel like this is a witch trial. It's so funny. For months, my family has taken personal attacks, name-calling, hate-filled remarks on social media, and dozens of trespassers over the past 2.5 years who know they're trespassing and just say, oh, we're just curious what's back here. To make matters worse, there are children in our family. I still have a niece and nephew that go to school here in Williamson County. In a time when mental health is at the forefront of public concern, why are we supposed to be immune from the pain that this can cause? I mean, it's not just it's more than property rights. It's just simple humanity. I know I'm up here talking about something from a totally different perspective, but in closing, I ask that you vote on this project tonight and let your facts be your guide, not the fear, the misconceptions, the bullying, the propaganda, and mistruths. The trust that we care too much about this community to choose a different, to not pick somebody that is right for this project or the wrong team. I truly believe that these gentlemen are fully committed to making sure that this development is good for Franklin. Thank you.
We've got Greg Gamble, Kathy Weber, Star Bedoin, Lydia Miller, and Kim Laster.
Hello, my name is Greg Gamble. I live at 716 Hampton Cove in Franklin, Tennessee. I'm the land planner and landscape architect for Brownland Farms. As read earlier and as mentioned and referenced by Amy, Envision Franklin addresses the preservation of floodplain, and it states the preservation of floodplains has a direct public safety purpose and helps to minimize property damage during flooding periods. And it's during those flooding periods that the preservation of the volume of space is so important and critical, not the preservation of the open space, fields, farmsteads, farmland, horse arenas, but the preservation of the volume. And I know that, as Amy mentioned, Envision Franklin doesn't give any additional guidance. It could be expanded to provide additional guidance, but I believe that the zoning ordinance does provide that guidance. It says you can manipulate the floodplain, you can fill, but you have to provide compensatory volume of 150% of land.
You're welcome to continue a little longer because I know that you're the land planner.
Thank you. Just a few minutes, really. But it's that 150% storage volume that is so critical. If these weather events are changing, we need the additional 28 million gallons of storage that Brownland is proposing within this neighborhood and this community. Thank you so much.
How many millions? I'm sorry.
Say it
How
again.
many
28.
gallons?
28 million
128
gallons
million?
of additional storage that's not currently there today. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Weber. I live at 1900 Springcroft Drive, and I am also a member of Christ Community, and I thoroughly, thoroughly believe in the mission of our church and what they want to accomplish by selling of our land. The things that I sent in the email, I'm not going to reiterate because you've heard them over several times here about the density and everything else. What I want to direct your attention to is your own zoning ordinance that states that it is to, and this is in the legal provisions of the document, okay? It states that to ensure that the zoning ordinance is to ensure the greater public safety, health and welfare, and convenience and accessibility through the physical design and location of land use and development. In that phase, your planning staff and planning commission has already denied because of that, not only because of Envision Franklin, but your own legal provisions of your document. The other one that I wanted to bring your attention to is like to preserve and protect existing trees, vegetation, floodplain, stream corridors, water quality, wildlife habitat, hillsides, etc., and other areas of the scenic environment that will be adversely impacting the land development. So the massive alteration proposal for this floodplain, this development does not preserve and protect the floodplain or the stream corridors. And then the other item that I wanted to address is that it secures safety from fire, flooding along water courses and other hazards. Again, this development is a safety risk to current and future residents. Thank you. I just request that you deny this and vote tonight and disapprove this.
My name is Star Bedoyan, and I live at 217 Greystone Drive. First of all, I want to thank each of you, the mayor and aldermen, for all you do to preserve this beautiful community in which we live. The proposed Brownland development does not follow the carefully created Envision Franklin plan. After spending much time in research, the Planning Commission and the City of Franklin engineering staff have both voted against this development. In addition to the number one concern, flooding, is the traffic problem on Hillsborough Road heading to Franklin, back and forth Franklin High School, for workers, teachers, and students, and downtown Franklin as well. Can you imagine a traffic nightmare, an additional a minimum of 470 cars coming onto Hillsborough Road each day would generate? Considering the facts before you, we are counting on you to do the right thing, deny this proposed Brownland to farmland development. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. And I really do appreciate your service to our city. My name's Kim Laster, and my husband and I, Brian, live at 424 Murfreesboro Road. And we wish to support the staff in the denial of this project. Our home is located in the 100-year floodplain, and we have seen firsthand how the devastating effects of floods have on our neighbors. We've also noticed the increase in the severe rain events and know the importance of leaving the floodplains undeveloped. Adding impervious surfaces to adjacent floodplains increases the runoff and the flood risk and reduces Franklin's resiliency. We ask that you deny this plan. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lydia Miller, and I live at 1328 Carnton Lane. I, too, ask that you vote against this plan, and these are my reasons. I didn't know Dory was going to have a fancy map, but I got on my MLS map, and I looked at the river and the subdivision, and this property is, 3 sides of it is on the river, and it's completely surrounded by floodplain. Much of it is in the floodway. During the 2010, after the 2010 flood, the city asked everybody that had a home in the floodplain to come to a presentation to hear about what was going on with the floodplain, what they were going to do, how many houses they had to buy that couldn't be rebuilt on. I did not realize until then that the city would have to buy houses back. But Roger Lindsay, who serves on the Planning Commission and is an engineer, and I believe he goes all over the country talking about floodway and floodplain management or building in it. I'm not sure what he talks about, but I know he's an expert in it. I'm glad to hear the city staff speak tonight about why they are standing firm against it. They are who you voted for to provide them with expert, what's best for the city, so I would urge you to accept what they say. Also, during the March flood, my daughter and I walked to the back of the Christ Community property along the fence and looked through the fence at the Brownland Farm corrals. And the water in March was about this far, 4 to 6 inches from covering all the fences there. And it was moving. It was not standing still, but it was I don't know how high the fences are because I've never been there, but it was nearly covering them up. The biggest problem that I see with the river surrounding three sides in the floodplain is that when it does flood, there is no place for the water to go. It's just it's gonna cause a mess. And I do have 2 children living in Cottonwood, so I do have a little bit of personal interest there.
If you'll go ahead and wind up, please, Lydia.
Okay, and then this is the other thing. Who incurs the cost when it does flood? Thank you.
Next, we have Adrian Ward, Michael Smith, Todd Kestner, and Mike Goodwin.
Hi, thank y'all for letting me speak. My name is Adrian Ward. I work with Barge Design Solutions, and we've supported Kevin on the flood model development. I lead Barge's flood mitigation practice for the company. Just wanted to talk just a touch about the model. So the model that we have developed, it's not really developed. We took FEMA's model, what they've used to set all the flood elevations already, and we just studied it and looked at it and advised Kevin on where he could make improvements, efficiencies to the floodplain without impacting folks downstream. So you can look at the model. The results are that we end up on average about 2 inches of drop across the site on average. It's not a lot, but it's better than what it is right now based on what FEMA's using. And I guess the last point is I keep hearing about like these more intense events and things like that. We've made the river system a little more efficient in this area. So regardless of what the event is, whether it's a 100-year or a 500-year, if you surcharge out into the floodplain where we've improved it, you should trend and see a reduction in flood elevation over what you would in an existing condition. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Michael Smith. I live at 106 Poteet Place in Monticello, and I've lived there for over 20 years. I'm writing and here today to urge you to deny the developer's request and to rezone and develop the Brownland Farm and Christ Community Church properties. I really urge you to listen to the recommendations of your own city planning staff, the Planning Commission, and the desires of the over 2,600 people who have recently signed a petition that's been submitted in opposition to this project for various reasons. They're not all here tonight, but you have that petition with you. I'd also encourage you to consider the following. This development proposal requires significant floodplain alterations which conflict with the guidelines of the Envision Franklin. This alteration may increase the available land on which to build, but it does not address the flood impact of surrounding areas, and there are a lot of communities involved that are going to be impacted, many of which have flooded significantly recently. There's no guarantee that any of these alterations that the experts have brought up will remove that risk. And as far as the other access to the roads has already been discussed. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Todd Kestner. I live at 3210 Del Rio Pike, right next to Meeting of the Waters, downstream with about 1,000 feet of river frontage on my farm. As a career, I've led development for a public company for the last 37 years. We absolutely adhere to the 10 commandments plus 2 more. The 11th commandment is thou shalt not develop within a floodplain, and the 12th commandment is thou shalt not alter a floodplain. And if the 100-year floodplain boundaries were correct, then I'm probably 400 to 500 years old right now, based on what I've seen since I've lived here. The proposed development is going to extensively modify the floodplain, which will push more water downstream, moving faster to the detriment of all of us downstream. This is the most important point. Numerous homes in our area that did not used to lie within the 100-year floodplain now do. Homes in Fieldstone Farms, Cottonwood, and other downstream neighborhoods. Think about that. 20 to 30 years ago, engineers opined that all those homes were going to be just fine. Now they're not. What happened? Upstream development's what happened. Those engineers' opinions have been clearly proven wrong. Wrong because they did not look far enough into the future and did not properly anticipate new development. Please please don't allow development in the floodplain or modification of the floodplain. We receive too much of your water already. We really don't want any more of it. The river prevails always. I love your staff. They're smart. Please listen to them. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mike Goodwin. I'm a homeowner at 2016 Upland Drive. I'm a retired Army colonel and retired Williamson County school teacher. I'm also an elder at Christ Community Church. And 2 points I'd like to make. The first was, being an officer at the church, I had to come to a decision about what recommendation to make to our congregation regarding selling the land at all. And honestly, I was a bit skeptical. I shared some concerns, many of which have been voiced tonight. But then I listened to the plans of the developer. I went to the property. I walked it with the developer. I listened to the recommendations and the plans of the professional civil engineers on this. I don't know about flooding and engineering and all that, so I just have to trust the people who do it for a living and have done it for decades. And they put my concerns to rest, so much so that I gave a overwhelming endorsement that yes, this will be good. The second thing is, my property where I live is not in the vicinity of this property, but is one where I very much would be interested in moving. And so just from a personal perspective, I would love to see this approved because I would be very interested. It's a great location. I'd be very interested in living there. I recommend that you approve this. Thank you very much.
Okay, did I miss anybody in the public hearing? If I didn't, then we'll declare the public hearing closed, and I would entertain a motion. And
So we're going to have the applicant speak. Can I speak a little bit more on Envision Franklin?
please.
Thank you very much. I know that a lot of people have come up today and are talking about the plan itself. Right now, we're talking about the rezoning, but it's really part and parcel with the plan itself. And we've talked a lot about how you can do manipulation of the floodplain and what's appropriate. But I have to go back to Envision Franklin and remind everyone that Envision Franklin says conservation subdivision. And I want to be clear that staff has been very clear with the applicant all along that we do not support it because of what Envision Franklin says. That stance is not new. It's also not new that we do not recommend this because of the multifamily units that they've placed on the property, because multifamily units are not supported in the conservation subdivision design concept of Envision Franklin. They came forward at one point and proposed a Envision Franklin plan amendment, but ultimately withdrew that to place this in a multifamily residential design concept. They withdrew that. Now they do have multifamily on here. So that's been very clear all along to the applicant from staff that we cannot support that. And the amount of units that they're placing in the conservation area and the multifamily directly affects the rezoning. So that is why we cannot recommend approval of this. You know, I wish perhaps that there were guidance in conservation design concept to talk about how you potentially could manipulate the floodplain or allow uses in the floodplain, but we don't have that at our disposal. So I really don't have that option to work with the applicant to suggest how much you could put in the floodplain that would still be okay or that would still be safe. So I do just want to make it very clear that this is not supported by Envision Franklin, the rezoning, the amount of density that they're putting on there. Thanks.
Mayor, look, could I ask her something, please?
Sure, let's get a motion.
What?
Or you go ahead and ask her, and then
I
I'll
just
ask for a
want to know,
motion.
are you saying that Envision Franklin says you cannot manipulate the floodplain?
Envision Franklin says that you should not put uses in the floodplain. The conservation design concept line follows the floodplain line, and we say within conservation design concept, the uses should be passive recreation only that do not manipulate the floodplain. That's the guidance of Envision Franklin. Yes, the zoning ordinance talks about how you could manipulate the floodplain and what you need to do with FEMA, but for this area of the city, it says to leave that portion alone. You know, this is a great development. I will say that. I was going to say this in the next item. It's a great development, and on a different piece of property, I would probably be standing up here supporting it. But unfortunately, the property that we're talking about has these design concepts on it that I can't. As staff, we can't support it.
Did that adequately address your question to her, Alderman? Thank you. Okay, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
We'll make a motion to approve because I want to
You're
ask.
late. I've already closed the public hearing, and I've already made an announcement that I was not going to take any more. I'll let you speak on item 6. Are you talking about Brownland? I'll let you speak on item 6. So,
Next.
next.
The development plan. Not now.
If you'll give that to Linnea. You're not going to
Not
speak
now.
right
We're
now.
still
I'll
on
call
item.
on you. Okay, is there a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve because I want to ask some questions whenever we get, if we get a second. I want to ask some questions of staff in relation to this right here.
I second.
Appropriate motion, second. And go ahead and ask your questions, Mr. Barnard.
We've heard a great deal of comment tonight on how staff doesn't support this. And if you're saying that staff doesn't support it, you're stating it because it's not in line with Envision Franklin. It's not because of the perceived flooding issues that are also being discussed, right?
I mean, that's a separate issue. I'll let Paul speak a little bit. to
That's
that.
in addition to.
Yeah, in addition to.
That adds to the concern and further,
Well,
I think, emphasizes
yeah.
the recommendation against the development.
Yeah, I would say that regardless of the issue on Hillsborough Road, staff doesn't support it regardless.
So
but-
staff is not supporting it simply because it doesn't conform to Envision Franklin.
No, there's additional issues. And what I would say is, there's definitely been a little bit of miscommunication that has occurred of where, and Kevin voiced his frustration about that today, where he shared information with us. And I can't fix that. What I would say to you is Heath Place is a great example of a residential subdivision that gets cut off, 100% cut off with floodwaters for a significant amount of time. Where the miscommunication has come across is the amount of water on Hillsborough Road and our understanding of it. I can tell you that the information I've received from their engineers is showing 17 and a half inches of water right at MacHatcher, in between MacHatcher and the bridge, that emergency personnel will have to cross in a 100-year event. I can tell you that it's about 2.25 feet on the north side, which makes this site very, very difficult to access in that 100-year event. That is a big problem for emergency personnel. You saw it in 2010. You saw it with Fieldstone Farms when they flooded and a house caught on fire. We don't know exactly how long it's going to be. And I told Kevin this at 2 p.m. I didn't want to have to bring this up. This is an issue we need to work through and get it resolved. But these waters there significantly will impact our ability to respond. I can't change the assisted living that has been built there. But before we approve this rezoning, before we approve this density, this development, this issue needs to be worked through. That amount of water on the roadway and our ability to respond in a natural disaster or a flooding event.
And Paul, to clarify, previous to this, we had a lower level of elevation. We thought it was less than a foot.
We thought it was.
And so now that number is higher, and that's what we're raising as a further concern.
And we looked at this all along, and now we just discovered this?
Well, we had
I don't
other
get this.
information that was provided through the recommended study, and now we have
Well, we
additional
had-
information that shows a higher elevation.
We had that
So,
in the
yeah,
study before.
It didn't have that same information.
And
Yeah,
and why,
We
I'm
would-
sorry, I'm sorry. It just seems to me, this just seems to me it's 11th hour, and we have been talking about this for months and months in their studies. And Barge and Wagner and CEC have weighed in on this. We've weighed in on this and everything. I don't understand why it's just now come to light that, oh, we have more inches than we thought.
Well, we didn't create it out of thin air. It's information that came to
Well,
our
we didn't
attention
create it out of
that
thin air.
we're not gonna ignore, and we're gonna share it with you.
But how does it pop up at the last minute, Eric? I don't get that. Thank you.
Because FEMA has just, in the last few months, put out new floodplain elevations in the city of Franklin.
So where did we get that information from? Paul, can you weigh in on
The-
that? Tell me where you got it.
I will say that there was definitely miscommunication or misunderstanding of the amount of water that our emergency folks would have to drive through. As of last week, it was brought to our attention. We investigated it. We didn't get final numbers until today. Now, that information might have been communicated previously, but was fully misunderstood by the staff that was looking at it.
Okay.
And the information we're getting right now, that is before us now, we need to sit down and look at. And that's
So-
where
Who is this new information
Yeah.
coming from?
we're getting it directly from their consultant as to what those flood depths are on Hillsborough Road. And we have not been able to sit down as a staff and talk about our ability to respond or our ability to mitigate this in conjunction with the development.
So the two engineering firms that have been hired didn't catch this? Or
The two
or
engineering
the
firms
city
that-
didn't catch this, or?
The two engineering firms that were hired to really evaluate the manipulation of the floodplain.
Right.
Ensure that it's
And
being
not-
done, we're tying in upstream, downstream.
Right.
They weren't necessarily looking at the flood elevations on Hillsborough Road and our ability to respond in an emergency situation.
And that's been there all along, and we have an assisted living, and all these places can't be gotten to either. And this is not a developer's problem, it's a city problem, but yet,
I'm going to say our understanding of the depths on Hillsborough Road were significantly less than the information that was presented today. And we've not had a chance to work through that with the development team.
I just listened to a man who stood up here and said he spent $1 million and some dollars in how many, 2 years, and to delay it, and I think we need to fix this. We need a way to fix this. We need, if it goes forward, yes. If it doesn't go forward, fine. But, I want the process to be right. And I understand what you're saying, Paul. You probably need some time to respond to it unless there's an amendment that allows you to, maybe the developer fixes the part from, what is it, Fulton Greer to Matt Catcher? And they raise it?
I think that needs to be evaluated offline and not made up on the fly as to what our emergency personnel are comfortable with responding to. I don't know how to do it on the fly.
I think that's a good comment, but what I would be interested in seeing is that if this passes on second reading, that there's time given to staff to work out if that's this issue right here with the developer and with them. But I'm not comfortable in stopping the process. I mean, we've been dealing with this for 2.5 years now. And it's kind of like we had a few minutes ago or a couple hours ago on something else that we've been dealing with for 4 years. It should not take us this long to deal with a project in Franklin, I don't think. And I'll go, if you want me to, I'll cover you another dozen projects in Franklin that are takes a long time to do something with. So, Vernon, do you want to say that, is it possible to pass this on second reading and then not have a third reading? I mean, I'm not saying not have it. Don't have it the next 2 weeks.
Mayor, if I may, it goes back to the recommendation made when we started, because we have talked about it as quickly. If your desire is to move this forward, that we recommend deferral of the development plan, which is the next item, okay, until October 12th, so we can have another public meeting and afford our team enough time to evaluate how Hillsborough Road can be mitigated. The rezoning can go forward. It's the development plan that's also considered tonight that we need to determine if some conditions can be put on that.
But is that the final reading then?
Pardon me?
Would that be
Final reading for the
reading?
development plan.
The development plan only has one reading.
So that would be.
Yes, so that would be on
done.
October 12th.
Because it's tough, because this board's been, we've been dealing with this for a couple of years. And, come November, you're gonna have new people, and they're coming in and going, well, we weren't part of the process. We haven't been here for 2 years, looking at all this stuff, reading all these things.
Let's go ahead and let me.
Let me make one clarification
now.
now.
I've got Alderman Martin
Yeah.
and Alderman Schroeder.
Can I clarify a little bit real quick?
Please.
Vernon's discussion about deferral is only if you think you might want to pass the development plan and the rezoning and the whole thing.
Right.
It's been recommended for disapproval by staff and by planning commission outside of this additional issue. So I know that's new information, and there are things that we could discuss on it, but if fundamentally you're not comfortable with the rezoning and the development plan, then I think you should consider that. I mean, I don't think that other issues should have an impact on how you feel about the rezoning and the development plan. If you're not ready to move forward with that, then this just adds weight that there are reasons for concern. So I don't think we're not recommending you defer. We're just recommending if you think you might want to pursue the development plan, that you don't approve it tonight, and that if you think you want to move forward, that you provide the additional time to look at this issue. But if you're not comfortable with the rezoning and development plan outside of this issue, then you can feel free to act.
Alderman Martin, go ahead, then I've got Alderman Shore.
Is the water on Hillsborough Road there now? If we had a flood tonight, would the water be across Hillsborough Road tonight?
Yes, if it was that
Okay.
100-year event,
That's-
it
okay.
would be there today.
That's fine. That has nothing to do with this development. Nothing.
The difference is we wouldn't have the 400-plus units to have to respond to.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
This has gone from 820 units to 471. It's gone from 233 condos to 64 condos. None of them are built for rental. They're for sale. I've heard people today say they would like to live there in the condos. As long as God sends rain, Franklin, Tennessee is going to flood. It floods my basement every time. That's where we live. And until the people from New York and California and Texas and Chicago get tired of moving here, we're going to have traffic issues and we're going to have parking issues. That's a given. But we just simply have to go on, and I think these developers have done a good job. And I don't want to even talk about the developers. I want to talk about the Andertons. You and your mother, Robin, you've lived in this land, you've taken care of it, you've been good stewards of it, and now you want to get rid of it. And we've worked on this for a long time, and I'm for this, what I see, what I've heard from the professionals, and like somebody said, I'm not an engineer. I do not know about that. But we've had them here, standing right where you are, telling about the flooding. And I have to believe them. We're still going to have flooding. But that's the way I feel about it. And my heart goes out to everybody who's got water around them. I have water around me. I have since I was born on Lewisburg Avenue next to John Henderson. And so I know all about the water. That's all I want to say.
Margaret asked my question, but, so I won't go on anymore. She asked the question I was interested in, whether or not Hillsborough Road would be affected by this development, but it doesn't appear that it will be.
Alderman Blanton.
So one day I want to be as sweet and blunt as Margaret. Until then, I'm just blunt. So one thing I want to call attention to, and I'll be gladly corrected, although I've read it here twice. People keep talking about how the Planning Commission voted this down, and it's 4-3.
Yep.
It wasn't like it was, am I correct? Correct. On both of these two items, it was not, whatever their numbers are, 4-3 is 7-0. It was 4-3. So that puts a totally different kind of spin on the Planning Commission voted it down. Yes, we have an incredible staff, and y'all work really hard, and we're so grateful for you, but it doesn't mean we always agree with you. The way I see this is the opportunity to add 28 million gallons of storage is a game changer. You're shaking your head no. Okay, opinion. When are we ever going to have an opportunity to fix things, even in a small amount of way, to contain that kind of storage?
Do you want to put the context of the storage issue? We did put a memo in there. I want that to be addressed. 'Cause-
But they hired an expert, and
Okay.
Bar just talked about, I mean, it's like, we've got people who deal with water.
Yeah.
They did hire 2 experts to do this, at our request, the second one to evaluate, to make sure we get it right. That's our goal, is to make sure we get it right.
Absolutely.
The storage, at the end of the day, they're still tying into cross sections upstream and downstream. The improvements with the storage they're creating in the engineered floodplain, as Adrian stated, is really across their development and maximizing their development. It's not benefiting the city overall. It's really to maximize their development. And that's okay, there's not a problem with that, but this isn't creating some magical benefit for the remainder of the city, and that's what we want to be very, very clear about.
Paul, what's the measurement of change?
It's it's nothing at
It's
the
like a
cross
quarter
section.
of an inch.
I think it
Quarter of
was
an
a
inch.
quarter of an inch.
Yeah, it's a quarter of an inch.
So-
And the other thing I got to throw out there too is that 100-year event is the level that a lot of people use for protection of what they want. So these residents are going to buy into this subdivision, and they're not going to understand that they're not going to be accessible during that 100-year event. And that's really why we're asking for that additional time, to be able to work through this with our emergency management folks, that when these people, these buyers come in and buy this house, that they may be, it's going to significantly limit our ability to respond.
So if there's already a problem today with Hillsborough Road, it needs to be fixed regardless of this project.
The big difference is we don't have this additional density there. And Monticello has another back way in. I can't fix the assisted living facility. There are others that have this issue, yes, but
You can't fix the assisted living facility, but yet you're saying Hillsborough Road is the problem. And they have to access coming north Hillsborough Road to get to the hearth.
we're creating a significant amount more density up there that we're asking for more time to evaluate with our emergency management folks. And come up with a condition of approval that'll hopefully accommodate both.
Well, does the deferral on item 6 do that?
And that's exactly what we were asking. If the recommendation is disapproval, as Amy stated, Eric stated, but the deferral is the other option that we're asking for more time to work through the development
Need a deferral of
plan.
5 also.
I don't have the agenda.
You have 3 readings on the rezoning, so you could sync it
No,
up
I'd
and
vote
still
on 5.
vote.
But we're still on the rezoning.
Vote on 5.
I've got Alderman Peterson, followed by the vice mayor.
Well, in talking about doing the adjustments on the land, I have asked over the times that I've been in the meetings on this about getting an example of a piece of property where 3 sides of it has the river around it, where they have tried to make the adjustment there. No one has ever given me, I know that there have been areas where they have, cut and fill, if you want to just call it that. But I have yet to have anyone ever give me an example, and I'm talking, I don't mean just the engineers here. I'm talking about engineers anywhere that we have worked with, to give me an example of a place that is basically just curved into the river. And that is a lot of difference there from just being alongside a river. There's a great deal of difference. And I have never had any engineer give an example of a place where they were effective in a situation like this one.
Vice mayor?
Man, I tell you, I've gotten so many notes that I have taken over the years on this stuff, and I've been flipping through some of these things, and I'm looking at this saying, okay, so they rework the land, and where else have we done this? Splendor Ridge, Lockwood Glen, Ladd Park, we've manipulated the land, the floodplain down there. Even, I think, if I'm not wrong, I think we did that for that detention project we did up there, Moores Lane, Franklin Road. But reworking the land, some of my notes I had put down a long time ago, but reworking the land and cutting and filling, it's actually giving us more width, and it's getting a lower elevation, and then the velocity of the water slows down. I listened to those experts, the engineers, and hopefully we trust these these people that we've hired. We have Barge and Wagner and CEC. So the water doesn't get short-circuited. It flows along the channel, goes into the river. We're meeting the requirements. And then I look at this and I think, well, we've got to weigh the homeowners' concerns, but we also have to weigh informed opinions. And I'm looking at these engineers' reports and thinking, I really need to pay attention to this. And so the concerns of the homeowners and the citizens, we have to look at the facts, and we have to look at the facts provided by the experts. And the big takeaway for me is both the company that the developer hired, the company that we asked to weigh in on these decisions, plus our own engineering firm, our own engineering team weighed in, and we've confirmed these reports. So we have to believe and accept these reports. We have to accept these findings. And in addition to development, they're taking more precautions by expanding the retention on the property and mitigating the water. And Paul, somebody tell me, we've talked about this before, but all this stuff is not improving anything off-site, but is it harming stuff off-site? What they're doing here and retaining the water and cutting and filling and doing the things, is it going to be detrimental downstream? Is it causing major flooding?
No.
All right, thank you. That's what my notes told me as well. I just wanted to confirm that. So
Mr. Mayor, I've
I
got.
think they've
after
done
I
everything
finish,
we've
I've got
asked.
one more
Alderman
comment.
Speedy.
Thank you.
Go ahead, after.
Really probably just adding to some of the comments. I mean, I know we've heard that there's not a benefit to the city, but we're not causing detrimental harm downstream. I would argue that adding, and I don't know what the final number is, because obviously FEMA's got to approve this, but if it's 470 homes, I would say that's a benefit to the city of Franklin. All we hear, and all the candidates who are running for election in October here, is housing, affordable, attainable, workforce. Median home price in Franklin is over $1 million, and the mean was 800,000. There's a shortage of supply, and I just think we always hear, what can government do? Well, maybe we could approve some developments and create a little more supply. We've also heard everything about the 100-year flood event. I think it needs to be said that every home in this development, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be built at the 500-year flood event level.
Yeah.
So I believe the developer's putting some extra, safety into this development. The other just byproducts, the 3 miles of the Greenway Trail, the fact that no one's enjoying this part of the Harpeth River except for Robin and his wife. I mean, we could really improve the connectivity in this town. I know it's the flooding's an emotional issue, but I'm kind of with Margaret. I've got to rely on these engineers and the expertise.
Did you want to make a comment before I ask for?
To say that many years ago, when Fieldstone Farms was approved, I was on the planning commission even back then, and I know that there were no properties that were approved on lots in Fieldstone Farms that were in the floodplain with the floodplain maps at that time. Since then, the floodplain maps have changed. The houses still are on exactly the same piece of property that they were built on. But as the floodplain maps changed, then some of those lots were now in the floodplain, and everyone knows that in 2010, those houses flooded. So just because you are using something that at this time appears not in the floodplain, although these are in the floodplain, but I'm just saying that doesn't mean that, as it's just happened in the recent how many months have we just gotten the new floodplain maps? It's been very recent, because I know I got Jimmy to send them to me.
Yeah, I know we have them. I don't know the exact date of when we received the new preliminary maps.
But they show some things that are now in what FEMA is saying, the floodplain, that were not before these new maps came out.
Okay, you ready to vote on the rezoning? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
No.
And Vice Mayor
Yes.
passes. Next is item 6, which is, this is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-53, a resolution approving the development plan for Brownland Farm PUD subdivision for several properties located near the intersection of Hillsborough Road and MacHatcher Memorial Parkway.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've gone into detail about Envision Franklin on the last item, so I won't bore you with those details again. I will speak a little bit to the plan itself. Like I said at the previous item, on a different piece of property, the layout that they've proposed does many of the things that Envision Franklin does support. And on a different piece of property, we would support it. Particularly about the plan, a couple things that staff also doesn't support is the multifamily buildings. They are of a scale that is not in the context of this stretch of Hillsborough Road. From this property up to the neighborhood commercial node at, Fieldstone Farms, the only building type along that stretch is a single-family home. The only exception is the church. So, as part of why we put Envision Franklin, the design concept is conservation subdivision, is because we supported additional density. We understood that that might be appropriate here because of how much floodplain is there, but we kept the form as a single-family form. So that's why we allowed multiplexes and duplexes. The other thing about this plan that I think Alderman Peterson was getting at is that because we don't have any guidance on how to allow manipulation of the floodplain and how much development to put into the floodplain area, we don't have guidance on where to put that new line. Right now, the new floodplain line is inches from the backs of several properties. So as Alderman Peterson suggested, if floodplain maps change in the future, we very well may likely put these lots into floodplain. Is that doing a disservice to our citizens? It's a question that you might want to consider, it's hard for staff because, again, we don't have that guidance to allow us to think through that idea. Envision Franklin simply says, do not develop in this area. So I'm here to answer any questions on the plan itself as B1. Thank you.
Okay, this still is the public hearing, and we've had a number of people already speak, and I know I have Amy Wells that would like to say something. So where's Amy? Go. Come on up, Amy. You have 1 minute to speak. I can't hear you, Alderman.
First, before my minute starts, I'd like to thank you for this time of public comment and for allowing me to speak. I was way back and sitting on chairs when I heard you call for people, and by the time I ran up here. Plus, I'd given my card to Dory, and she left it in the chair. She forgot to give it to you. So, sorry,
Shame
Dory.
on you, Dory.
Anyway, with all due respect, getting a free park across from Monticello. I live at 303 Gillette Drive, River Landing. Getting a free park across Monticello is not adequate for the risks here. Nothing is free, as we all know, but oxygen, I believe. And also, I want to say this new info that we have now, that should not be a reason to go ahead with the development just to fix Hillsborough Road. This needs to be looked in more. And that's new information, but I think we should decide on this development based on everything else we've talked about. Raising Hillsborough Road, as was suggested, definitely not. It's another cost to taxpayers. I just want people to consider what's the people downstream. Yes, they might be helping people in this new development. It might be a 500-year plan there, The rest of it is not changing. My lot has constantly changed with each flood we have. The swimming cows is no joke. That was in my backyard. I don't think we should let FEMA decide because this is a local thing. We need to decide this locally. I'm sorry for the family at Brownland Farm that's been harassed on social media. That is awful, but it's not really relevant to this vote. And when people say emotional arguments, I don't really feel like cost to taxpayers is emotional. The health of our rivers and water supply is emotional, and I don't really think safety is a factor. When we had to be evacuated from our neighborhood, and that was a cost as well. I believe in the scientific Harpeth Conservancy, their scientists. I believe in the Planning Commission's experts that were there and the city planning staff experts. I believe the experts for the developer have a conflict of interest. Sorry, but I do. Lastly, I am a member of Christ Community Church, and I vote no on this. I would like to help my church, but I think it's more important to love thy neighbor. So I would love for you guys to vote no on this and love the neighbors across the street in Monticello, downstream, Fieldstone Farms, Cottonwood, Natchez Trace, River Landing, Temple Hills, on and on. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to allow the applicant to make a statement if he'd like to.
Well, first of all, we are not glad, but understanding that Vernon, I don't remember Vernon's last name, I apologize, it's a Girth.
After all these years.
I know, I feel like that's too much going through my mind, I so apologize for that. We're not against deferring the development plan to October 12th. If that is going to be the third reading of the rezoning and the one reading of the development plan, so it does not go beyond October 12th, if that's the Board of Mayor and Aldermen's desire. Secondly, we have talked a lot, and we've not had near the communication with the staff we would like, but we are not against shrinking down these condominiums so they are not larger mass or anything over the townhomes or something like that. We glad to try. It isn't my way or the highway ever. If it was, I'd had a lot more units. But I'm not here to try to not find a middle ground. We're glad to. And once again, whatever comes about, once again, I'm not saying not my problem. I'm an engineer just like Paul. He's not wrong. If the fire chief told me he hasn't had enough time to study it, if there's something that needs to be done, like I said, and this approved, there's $2.5 million we could do. It's such a short 150, 200-foot section of Hillsborough Road. We're not talking a long section. Glad to work with staff to try to find something to do and use these arterial road fees, if that could just be a condition to the approval. That's all I got to say about the whole floodplain and 500 year and all. We are not inches. I don't want to say we're inches from the lots. We made sure to push them back. We're nowhere. I can't speak to everyone who lives there. We all lived through the flood. I was damaged by trees and power lines, not by the waters. We all have but lived through the flood. But we're not here to cause harm or to sell a house to someone who has to be rescued. I do not believe that, and I will be glad to work with staff and show the expertise that we've looked up with and share with them and try to work that out with them over the next couple of weeks. And so if it's your will, we will gladly to defer the development plan to October 12th.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and would entertain a motion.
I would move to defer the development plan until October the 12th, but I would also like to move the rezoning to the 12th also. Yes. So those two items run together. So you're not going to have third reading on rezoning the fourth Tuesday of this month. You'll have it the first Tuesday of next month, as well as, if it passes, the development plan also, giving staff and you a month to work on whatever issues we can work out.
I'll second that.
And if I understand your motion is to defer to October 12th, item number 6, and item number 5.
Third reading.
Third reading.
For that will take place on October 12th.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Okay, everybody good with the motion? Any discussion on that? Ready to vote?
Second.
Alderman, Vice Mayor did. Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Now I'll go to item number 7, which is City of Franklin Contract 2021-0045, Parkland Impact Fee and Construction Agreement between the City of Franklin and Miles River Partners, known as Brownland Farms. Is there,
Approval.
thank you.
Defer that
Can we
to,
defer that?
please.
You'll
Because those
defer that
run
to
with
the
the
12th.
development plan.
I move to defer that to October 12th.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 8, this is a public hearing. Consideration of Resolution 2021-54, a resolution approving a revised development plan for Christ Community Church. Would we just need to defer that to October the 12th also?
Yes.
So is there a motion?
I make
So
a
moved.
motion.
Well,
Second.
let's see, I've got to have a public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. We'll now entertain a motion to defer to October the
Second.
12th.
I said so moved.
Okay, and second by Alderman Barnhill. Okay, any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Item number 9, this is a public hearing of ordinance 2021-27, an ordinance to rezone 32.43 acres from Regional Commerce 12 to Plan PD 17.11 per 320,116 district for properties located north of McEwen Drive and east of Interstate 65, 6100 and 6700 Tower Circle. Welcome back to the Ring of Fire.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Um,
The applicant is requesting to rezone 32.43 acres from Regional Commerce 12 or RC 12 zoning district to planned development PD 17.11 / 320,116 district. Envision Franklin places this development in the regional commerce design concept. Envision Franklin states that parcels with this concept should be high-intensity activity centers that attract large numbers of people and employees from both within and outside of the city. Envision Franklin supports the proposed PD zoning for the parcel and the proposed uses shown within the associated development plan. Resolution 2021-123. FMPC recommended approval of ordinance 2021-27 by a vote of 8-0, and staff recommends that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approve ordinance 2021-27 on second reading. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Is there anyone who wants to make any comments to, I have no speaker cards on it. Seeing no speakers, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. Would entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson.
Second.
Alderman Barnhill, thank you.
You gotta be louder.
You gotta be louder. Is there any,
We won't swap seats.
is there any discussion? The only comment I would make is, I understand the need, why they're changing it, but I wish that they would have considered putting more for sale units in their development. And so, anyway, that's my only comment. Any other comments?
Still working on that.
Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
I'm contemplating it because of your comment. I'm going to say yes, but we're
Okay,
still going to
pass-
work towards this for sale units.
Passes unanimously. Item number 10, public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-123, Resolution approving a development plan for West Franklin Park PUD subdivision, property located north of McEwen Drive and east of Interstate 65, 6100, 6700 Tower Circle. Chelsea?
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is proposing approximately 555 dwelling units consisting of rent and for sale multifamily, approximately 311,216 square feet of office space, and 8,900 square feet of retail for a site that's comprised of 32.43 acres. The properties were originally part of a unified site plan that has partially developed. The change from primarily commercial to primarily residential prompted the request for zoning change to plan development and the requirement of a development plan. Envision Franklin places this development in regional commerce, as I stated. It states that buildings should be arranged on sites so that they help to frame and define the streets, giving deliberate form to streets and sidewalk areas, that building setbacks should be minimal to create an active street environment that encourages pedestrian activity, where internal drives are used to organize buildings and pedestrian movement, and setbacks to internal drives should be minimized wherever possible. The plan as proposed meets many of the recommendations and guiding principles of Envision Franklin. It nearly eliminates surface area parking lots by constructing buildings with internal parking garages and meets all parking requirements within the zoning ordinance. The layout of the site allows for full frontage activation for most of the buildings. The proposed setbacks and street network promotes ground level activity and walkability for the entirety of the site. Envision Franklin also states that new multifamily residential is encouraged within regional commerce to create lively, walkable neighborhoods near restaurants, shops, grocery stores, and workplaces. First floors are encouraged to have active commercial spaces, including retail, restaurants, leasing offices, and other amenities, which should be individually accessible from the street. In locations where commercial use on the first floor is not viable, then multifamily units should provide individual ground floor entrances, stoops, or front porches, and pedestrian connections to the street or to a drive resembling a street. Multifamily buildings are encouraged to have urban form and to be part of a connected and master planned site. The focus on multifamily development on this site allows for a cohesive development of urban living. There are a variety of ground floor retail options along with proposed office space that could serve as potential workspaces for residents. In addition, connections to existing multi-use trail will enhance the walkability of the proposed plan. The plan does incorporate some individual ground floor entrances for ground floor dwelling units as required by the zoning ordinance. For new development in regional commerce, Envision Franklin recommends that formal, usable open spaces such as plazas, courtyards, and outdoor seating areas that serve as gathering areas. These open spaces should be highly accessible and in a prominent location and encourage continued active use. The plan proposes 10 open spaces that vary by type. These types range from a pocket park and greenway to plaza and outdoor dining areas. Neighborhood amenities such as a pool area for residences are also proposed. FMPC recommended approval of Resolution 2021-123 with conditions by a vote of 8-0, and staff recommends the same. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Does anyone want to speak to this body at the public hearing? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Schroer, second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson. And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 11, City of Franklin Contract 2021-0167 Parkland Impact Fee and Construction Agreement between the City of Franklin and Northwest Franklin Park LLC, West Franklin Park PUD subdivision. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you. Second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer. Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger. Passes unanimously. Item number 12, this is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-117, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the annexation of 4325 Long Lane by the city of Franklin, Tennessee. Joey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Alderman. The property is located within the Goose Creek Basin, which was identified as a short-term growth area in 2018. No additional manpower or equipment will be necessary for fire, police, or sanitation. Staff recommends approval to the Board, Mayor and Alderman. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak to this body? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Martin.
Second.
Is there a second? Alderman Blanton. Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer. Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 13, consideration of, this is a public hearing, consideration for a resolution 2021-118, a resolution to annex 4325 Long Lane consisting of 7.01 acres located south of Long Lane, west of Long Lane, and adjoining the city limits within the southern part of Franklin urban growth boundary.
Thank you. The city is contiguous to city limits and is within the city UGB. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2021-118. Thank you.
Public hearing is closed since no one's come forward, and go ahead and I'll recognize a motion. Thank you. Is this seconded by who?
Margaret?
Oh, Margaret. Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes. Passes
Unanimously. Now, we'll go to another public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 2021-24, an ordinance to rezone, to zone 7.01 acres of state residential district for the property located south of Long Lane and west of Long Lane at 4325 Long Lane.
Thank you. The proposed zoning of estate residential is appropriate for the existing land use and meets the recommendations of Envision Franklin. No corresponding site plan or development plan for the property has been submitted at this time. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-24. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone want to speak to this body? I don't see anybody. We'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill, seconded by Alderman Schroer. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin. Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 15, this is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-119, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the annexation of 4432 Pratt Lane outside of the southeastern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary by the city of Franklin.
Thank you. The city is outside of the city's urban growth boundary. Access to the property shall be provided from existing roadway networks. As properties in the area develop, roadway improvements and road extensions shall be required in accordance with Connect Franklin. No additional manpower or equipment will be necessary for fire, police, or sanitation. Since this property lies outside of the UGB, long-range city plans will need to be updated prior to future rezonings and development plans. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2021-119. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anyone want to speak to this body? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Schroer. Ready to vote?
He just looks at
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, passes unanimously. Item 16, this is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-120, a resolution requesting a referendum for the annexation of 4432 Pratt Lane located south of Paytonsville Road and east of Pratt Lane and outside of the southeastern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary. Go ahead, Joey.
Thank you. Because the subject property is outside of the city UGB, annexation cannot occur until a referendum has been held where a majority of the property owners requesting annexation vote to have their property annexed by the city of Franklin. This resolution authorizes the request to the Williamson County Election Commission to hold a referendum on October 26th of this year in conjunction with the Franklin municipal election. Full timeline is available in your attachments. This property does help to fill a donut hole that was created when surrounding properties were annexed back in 2020. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2021-120. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody coming forward to speak to this body. I'll declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Martin?
Yes.
Alderman Schroer?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I'm going to break a little tradition here. I'm going to take up item number 30.
Yeah,
I think Judge Franks deserves to let us skip to the end because she's probably as tired as we are. So we're going to go to 30 and consider to deny sewer availability for 1107 Holly Hill Drive.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
No.
Well, wait.
Yeah, move for approval. Then go ahead.
I need a second first.
Well,
Clarify the motion.
I'm sorry?
No.
Let's clarify the motion.
yeah, because denying it is, we want to,
We gotta get, we don't want to deny.
no.
That's right.
If you look
Oh,
at
I'm
the
sorry.
item
I'm sorry.
report,
Approve the availability.
You go ahead,
I
Margaret.
would like
Yeah, go ahead.
move to, deny,
Approve availability.
approve availability.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
second.
yes.
you.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
see.
All right, everybody clear? This motion is to approve availability to the property mentioned, 1107 Holly Hill Drive. So is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Next, we'll go to
Move for adjournment.
item number 17. This is a public hearing, consideration ordinance 2021-25, an ordinance to zone 5 acres, a state residential district for the property located south of Paytonsville Road and east of Pratt Lane, located 4432 Pratt Lane.
Thank you. The planning and zoning jurisdiction of the city will extend to the annexed area on and after the effective date of annexation, should it be past the referendum. Upon annexation, the Planning Commission will amend Envision Franklin to include these parcels into the document, including assigning design concept for all parcels. The proposed zoning of SA residential is appropriate for the existing land use and is consistent with the zoning of the surrounding properties that were recently annexed into the city. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-25.
I see no one coming up to speak at the public hearing, so I'm going to close that public hearing and ask for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Item number 18, this is new business. Good. Consideration resolution 2021-111, a resolution to annex 4416 Paytonsville Road, consisting of 2.86 acres with property located at the terminus of the intersection of Goose Creek Bypass and Paytonsville Road and adjoining the city limits within the southern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary, establishing public hearing October the 12th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Alderman Barnhill, second it.
Second.
Second, the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 19 is consideration of ordinance 2021-22, an ordinance to zone 2.86 acres civic institutional district for the property located at the terminus of the intersection of Goose Creek Bypass and Paytonsville Road and adjoining the city limits within the southern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary, establishing public hearing on October the 12th. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Any discussion?
This is the city property, right?
Yeah, yes.
Right next to the fire.
No, we're going to vote.
Let the applicant.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Now we'll go to item number 20, which is a resolution to annex. It's a resolution 2021-121, a resolution to annex 841 Old Charlotte Pike consisting of 58.64 acres, property located north of Old Charlotte Pike, east and west of Del Rio Pike, and adjoining the city limits within the northwest part of the Franklin urban growth boundary, Hamilton PUD subdivision, establishing a public hearing on October the 12th. Is there a motion? Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Second, Alderman Martin. Any discussion?
Comment. I would love a sidebar on why we changed it to Hamilton. I didn't recognize the project, so I thought that was interesting.
Okay. You can get that after the meeting.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Martin? Alderman Schroer?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 21 is consideration of ordinance 2021-26, an ordinance to zone 58.64 acres planned, PD1 District, Floodway Fringe Overlay District, and Scenic Corridor Overlay District for the property located north of Old Charlotte Pike, east and west of Del Rio Pike, 841 Old Charlotte Pike, Hamilton PUD subdivision. Is there a motion?
So,
Thank you, Alderman Martin, seconded by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman, let's go backwards this time. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton? Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Alderman Schroer?
Yes.
Alderman Martin?
Yes.
And Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Okay, item number 22.
Can we start?
Consideration
I think we need to
resolution
avoid backwards.
2021-131, a resolution to annex parcel 106-9.00 consisting of 1.58 acres, property located north of Henpeck Lane and west of Lewisburg Pike, adjoining the city limits within the southern part of Franklin urban growth boundary, established a public hearing on October the 12th. Is there a motion?
so move. Second then.
Okay, got that?
Got that?
Okay, any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 23 is an ordinance 2021-35, ordinance to zone 1.58 acres in the neighborhood commercial district for the property located north of Henpeck Lane and west of Lewisburg Pike, establish a public hearing. Yes, October the 12th. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Blanton, thank you. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin. Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Item 24 is consideration ordinance 2021-36, an ordinance to rezone .86 acres from residential R1 district to R2 district for the property located south of Boyd Mill Avenue, east of Horton Lane, at 3104 Horton Lane, establish a public hearing, yes, October the 12th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton and Alderman Shore made the motion. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin. Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, next is item 25, consideration ordinance 2021-30, ordinance to rezone 60.50 acres from Plan District to Plan District 6.45 slash 155,679 district. Plan PD 6.75 slash 144,258 district of property located south of Linwood Way, west of Franklin Road at 120 Davenport Boulevard. We know this is Gateway Village. Is there a and we'll establish a public hearing, yes, October the 12th. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Martin, good. Any discussion? Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Martin?
Yes.
Alderman Schroer?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is item 26, which is a resolution 2021-141, a resolution authorizing and providing for the financing of the construction of a wastewater facilities project through State Revolving Loan Fund for a principal amount of $19,500,000. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank y'all, and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Alderman Martin? Alderman Schroer?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 27 is ordinance 2021-40, an ordinance to amend the City of Franklin Municipal Code, Appendix A, Comprehensive Fees and Penalties, Chapter 18, Water and Sewer, for the purposes of updating water, sanitary sewer, and reclaimed water user fees for 2022 and 2023, and I don't have that pulled up.
And
but
we've
I
got
would look for a
options on
motion.
there.
Yeah, we have two options.
Options.
Option A is to put the rate increase on the customer charge entirely, which is the staff recommendation, because we are under recovering against our fixed costs. Option B is to split it equally between the customer charge and the volumetric rate. And it's the same way for both water and sewer. A is entirely on the customer charge, the fixed component, and option B is to split it between the fixed component and the volumetric component.
Motion to approve option A?
Second.
And that's to put it,
Motion
put
seconded
everything
by
on
Alderman Speedy.
the, okay, understand. That's put
Yes.
everything on the minimum charge, right?
Yes.
You know, the only thing about that, I mean, I'm okay with it, but we've talked about it before, that means that the people who are maybe living by themselves and don't have a lot of money and are not really using very much water, you know, are gonna pay as much as anybody else. And I'm okay with doing it with option A, but still, that was a reason that we talked about doing it the other way.
B.
Option A is what the
No,
motion is
But I'm
for.
okay, I'm okay with A, but I'm just saying, that's the reason, once upon a time, when we were talking about doing these.
In the last several times you've done rates, you've done an option B type of approach.
Yeah.
But we are behind on the fixed rate.
Okay,
So
okay.
structure-wise, that's why we're recommending the
Sure,
A approach.
I'm
because you're
okay
not
with it.
recovering the fixed
I
rate.
just want to
What
remind.
does that do to the minimal customer then? It still gives them,
They still get 1,000 gallons of water with the fixed rate, but we've got fixed costs associated with the operations as well as debt service, and this aligns better with the cost structure.
so if they're at the bottom of $1,000, 1,000 gallons, then it goes, it kicks in after that.
I don't have it right in front of me, I'm sorry. It's
Kicks in
a
after
dollar a
that,
month,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
$2 a
cheap.
month
It's cheap.
combined, yeah.
Yeah,
cheap.
is it after 1,000, isn't it?
Yes, they get the 1,000
Yeah.
with the fixed rate.
Right, so the water customers
There-
would see an increase of $2.21 on the first year and $1.72 on the second year. Sanitary sewer customers would see an increase of $2.05 the first year and $1.76 on the second year. So that would be applied to that minimum bill, which is inclusive of the 1,000 gallons.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? You ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
No.
Passes 6-1. Next is item 27 is ordinance 2021-40, an ordinance to amend the City of Franklin Municipal Code, Appendix A, Comprehensive Fees and Penalties, Chapter 18, Water and Sewer, for the purpose of upgrading water, sanitary sewer, and reclaimed water use fee for 2022 and 23.
We just did that.
You already did that.
Yeah.
Oh, I am. Sorry about that.
That's not good.
Item 28, this is exciting. Consideration resolution 2021-145, resolution to rescind resolution for Cheekwood lease agreement. I would ask that that be moved to the last meeting in September.
So move.
September 28th.
Second.
second by Alderman Schroer. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
I'll recuse myself.
Who recused herself? Okey-doke, passes. And next is item 29 is Resolution 2021-148, resolution approving a one-time option for employees to sell back 40 hours, 54 hours for fire shift personnel of their accrued vacation. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We have reached the point in our meeting where I'm looking for a motion to. Thank you.
Just as long as we don't have to go to executive session.
No executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.